We're on a quest to find out which part of the world makes the best sandwich. So we've already hit North America, South America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and Africa. Now we're gonna head to Asia, where we're gonna whip up 5 of the most popular and unique sandwiches that the continent has to offer. Only one of these sandwiches will take the gold and get to represent the continent in the final sandwich showdown, aka the Sandwich Olympics, a contest which will take place once we've explored all the sandwiches from all the continents, which is actually going to happen in the next video. We're finally on to the final episode. It's crazy. We've been at this for a long time. If you haven't seen the other videos, go check them out. They're pretty cool. They're pretty fun. We have a good time, fun times. And definitely stick around, because after we crown the victor, regardless of who wins, we're going to take the best components from each sandwich and fuse them together to create the ultimate Franken-Asian sandwich. Frasian sandwich. Kind of like Frasian, is that okay? Let us begin. The banh mi originated in Vietnam during French colonial rule. That was from 1887 to 1954, a long one. This combines the baguette, the classic French baguette, with Vietnamese ingredients. Think about it, I mean, it makes sense. The French love conquering places and bringing their stuff with them. Another dish comparable would be pho, the famous Vietnamese soup. It's actually a rendition of pot de pho, which is a classic, like, peasant food from France. Just like a little meat and potato and vegetable stew. Pho is the Vietnamese version of that, pretty much, just like the banh mi is a Vietnamese version of a sandwich, you know, like a French-style sandwich. The sandwich gained popularity in the West when Vietnamese immigrants started opening up shops all over the US, Canada, and Australia. And this has got to be one of the most balanced sandwiches on the planet, in my opinion. Fun fact, Vietnam is the 2nd largest coffee producer on the planet. Famous for that super strong, super sweet iced coffee. If you've never had one, you gotta try it, it's really good. Pretty much get one whenever I get a banh mi. Let's cook. In a pan, over medium heat, we're gonna go in with some butter. Melt that down. Now we're gonna go in with our pork liver that I cubed up and soaked overnight. This is gonna be a pork pate. A little pinch of Jesus! A little pinch of salt. All right, we're just gonna brown these. Just gonna flip them around, make sure that they're cooking on both sides, getting some color. Oh yeah. We're gonna go with some onion, yellow onion, some crushed garlic, and some 5 spice powder. Give it that Vietnamese flair. Gonna mix that around, soften those onions in the butter. Now we're just gonna go with a little Shaoxing wine, Chinese cooking wine. Let that reduce a tiny bit. Harvest those brown bits on the bottom. And now we're just gonna add a tiny bit of water, pinch more salt. We're seasoning in layers here. Give that a nice little stir-ski. And we don't wanna overcook the liver, so we're gonna cut the heat and let that steam out for about 3 to 5 minutes, just until the livers are perfectly cooked through. All right, we gotta puree this up. Everything in the food processor. Not on the counter, ideally. Now we spinning. All right, so as this is spinning, we gotta add some butter. Tempered butter. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, so obviously that looks super liquidy, but when that solidifies and comes to room temperature, it's gonna be a nice spreadable mixture for our banh mi. By the way, pate is an interesting thing to talk about here. Pate, I think, is extremely important at a banh mi. It adds this sort of like irony umami that plays well with, honestly, whatever you put on it. That with the mayo butter and all the crunchy bright vegetables and the pickles, it's necessary, I think. Can you make a banh mi without a pate? Sure, but I think it's gonna lack. Just one guy's opinion. So, we're gonna get this in the fridge and get going on the next thing. Next up for the banh mi, we gotta make a mayo. But the thing is, this mayo is called butter mayo oftentimes. Now, does it have butter in it? Maybe some versions do, but ours does not. But it is buttery and delicious, but wouldn't you just call it like a mayo-y at that point? I don't know, whatever. Cool trick on how to make some easy mayo. So we got a mason jar here. We're gonna go in with our egg yolks, a little bit of rice wine vina, a dash of fish sauce. We got some garlic powder and celery salt. Interesting. And for sweetness, a little corn scissor. Also helps thicken things. Pinch of kosher. So this is our liquid base here, which we then need to add fat on top of. It's a neutral oil, meaning it doesn't have much taste, which is good because we want the taste to come from the mayonnaise. Now using an immersion blender, we are going to try to trap the yolk in the liquid base and puree. And kind of work the blender up the oil slowly as things emulsify. There's a thick mayo, baby. Look at that. That emulsification is nice and stable. Woo, this thing runs on diesel. It's a very, very eggy mayonnaise, right? It almost reminds me of that golden sauce from what do we call that place? The hibachi spots. Man, I could put that stuff in a protein shake and like it. No mayo left behind. Oh yeah, that's thick. Maybe that's why they call it butter mayo. It kind of looks like butter, kind of feels like butter. I don't know, comment below if you know why butter mayo is the name of this. Yeah. Looks quite buttery. All right, we gotta talk about meats on the banh mi. You can get banh mi a whole load of different ways. You can get it with like lemongrass chicken. I've seen like fried tofu varieties with beef, or most classically, this stuff here, which is just processed Vietnamese ham. It's pretty much what this is. Maybe a couple extra different spices, but this is more so just like regular and emulsified, like, you know, pork product, like you would see American ham, maybe with a little more collagen and offcuts in it, because you can kind of see that there's like this clear collagen in it. And then this is very interesting. This is pork roll here. Lots of different varieties of this pork roll. There, you can see there's black peppercorns in here. It looks like there might be some ear. But again, this is an emulsified pork product. This is made with more leaner meat. This is obviously more of the different kind of cuts all rolled up and then sliced into these little discs, which we'll then put on our sandwich. Sounds weird, looks weird, really tasty, trust me. Again, everything goes so well with everything on the sandwich. But yeah, we'll talk more about that when we build. South Korea's Gilgeori Toast was invented in the 1980s as a quick, cheap breakfast sold by street vendors to busy Seoul commuters. Koreans have been munching this omelet sandwich for years, but recently it's became popular once again from food tourism and viral videos on places like YouTube. You know, those videos with like no narration, like zero effort in the thumbnail, and they're always like 3 hours long. I love those videos. The name literally translates to street toast, and sort of like here in the United States, the Korean palate has an affinity for sweet flavors, which we're gonna come back to. I'll explain that more later when we build. Fun fact, Taekwondo is the national sport in South Korea and is believed to have been invented 2,000 years ago. It's a long time. A lot of old cool stuff in this part of the world. Let us make it. We're basically just mixing stuff in a bowl. We're gonna start with some thinly sliced cabbage, a little bit of carrot, a little bit of onion, a little bit of other onion, just some scallion, and a pinch of kosher. We're just gonna work the salt into the vegetables, just kind of loosen it up and break the veggies down a little bit, make sure everything is nice and seasoned through and through. Then it's in with 1 egg, and we just mix that around, kind of work the egg in. It's kind of like a cabbage omelet sandwich in a way. Actually, that's exactly what it is. Beautiful. And then all we have to do now is fry this up. Into a hot pan, I'm just gonna start melting some butter down. Who don't like butter in the morning? That's worldwide. Then our cabbage mix. And I'm gonna do my best to shape this kind of sort of around the same size as our bread. To quote the great Francis Mallman, it's got to drink the butter. So I'm just gonna add some butter on the sides here and allow that to drink the butter. All right, we're gonna try to flip this thing. Nice, look at that. And of course, more butter. It will drink the butter. Kind of work that butter underneath it. All right, this thing should be good. Look at that beautiful little square of cabbage and egg. China's Roujiamo, or the Chinese hamburger. Yes, I definitely butchered that name, so comment below if you know how to pronounce it well, or better than me, which is probably very easy to do. So this literally translates to meat placed between bread. It's also sometimes, again, called a Chinese hamburger. And it dates way back before the actual hamburger was invented, over 2,000 years ago in the Qin dynasty in the Shaanxi province. Crazy. Which actually makes it one of the world's oldest sandwiches. Which is interesting because this sandwich on the docket today is probably one that I'm least familiar with, but I have had one before, they're pretty good. It starts with an interesting bread that's kind of a cross between, I don't know, like one of those like scallion pancake bings, an English muffin, and a tortilla. Hybrid vibes. Fun fact, China is home to the oldest continuous civilization, stretching back to over 3,500 years ago. Again, lots of cool old stuff. We love cool old stuff. Let's make it. Chinese hamburger needs burger buns, or not really buns, but a simple dough. This is kind of what I was talking about. A soft, supple, it's a relatively low hydration dough, kind of almost like a tortilla dough in a way. I'm just gonna divide this into 4 equal-ish parts. You can whip out your scale if you want to be a nerd about it, which is totally respectable, but I'm just gonna do this. All right, 4 equal parts. I'm gonna take one of them, and we're just gonna roll that into like sort of like a log, and then I'm gonna roll it out into a skinnier log, keeping the middle a little tapered like that. Okay. Now we have kind of like a, what do you call that? Like a worm. So we're gonna roll this out from the center and then down. And then we're gonna take this end and we're gonna roll her up. Spiralize that, John. Pull back a little bit if you want. Make it nice and tight. Until you have a little croissant looking thing like that. And we're just gonna squash it. Take that tail, tuck underneath, squash it. And before we roll these out, I like to let these rest a little longer, just because they're really, as you can see, bouncy, and they're not gonna roll out easily. So take that and rinse and repeat. So now we're gonna take a rolling pin here, and I'm gonna go like this to create kind of a bowl shape. You'll see what I mean in a second, but it's gonna kind of coil up as you work around. It's kind of the same motion you'd be doing if you were making a dumpling. See how it kind of coils through like that? Then I just kind of like to go in there and press it down a bit. This interesting shape is what is going to be kind of like our bun, right? So, yeah, something like this. And now, I'm just gonna take this and brown it very gently on both sides in a dry pan. Very lightly browned. All right, it's looking good. All right, now we can get these in the oven, and the center is gonna pop up a little bit. That's how you know they're finished. Only takes about 350 Fahrenheit or so for, 5-10 minutes. All right, check this out. Here we got some braised Chinese pork belly. There's a lot of aromatics. It's basically like a soy sauce braised with a lot of aromatics, chili peppers, scallions, tons of different spices, ginger, garlic, the works. But as you can see, this is a delicious, browned, gelatinous, jiggly piece of pork belly that we're gonna chop up with some aromatics and call it a day. I gotta put on the protective gear. Some people call me a hero. No one's ever called me a hero. Maybe I should think a little deeper about that. But for real, don't be a hero. Wait for this to cool down a little bit. But I'm not gonna, because I have no patience or any other good redeeming qualities. All right, here we got our scallions, just obviously roughly chopped. Got some whites and some green parts in there, some punchy, some more herbal. Speaking of herbal, we got our cilantro roughly chopped again, some stems in there too. And that is our mix. We're just gonna take a knife. You can just hear that goo. Oh yeah. And chop the aromatics into the pork. Using the tiniest cutting board in my arsenal for this, for no reason. That's looking good to me. Yeah, wow. Just gooey, porky, onion cilantro, kind of like aromatic bomb. And this is gonna be the filling for a Chinese hamburger. Sorry I keep calling it that. I'm just really not confident enough to say the name fully. Rou Jia Mo, Rou Jia Mo.
Rou Jia Mo.
Sorry. Let me taste this a little bit. No. We wait until the end. See what I mean? Puffed in the middle, that's how you can tell they're finished. A little misshapen, but you know, of the batch, you can make a couple batches and choose which one you like the most, but I'm thinking this guy might be our best guy. A little toasted, puffed, you cut that in half, but we'll talk all about that later when we build. For now, on to the next one. Japan's Katsu Sando is what's often referred to as yakosho, or Western style food with a Japanese flair. Think omurice, hambagu, or hamburger, karaoke, that sort of thing. It's sort of like how here in the US, our Chinese takeout food is actually more like American Chinese food. In Japan, they have Japanese American food, which is kind of interesting and cool to see. So yakosho developed during the Meiji Restoration, when Japan rapidly modernized and Western influence, including the food, became super fashionable among the upper and middle classes. Nowadays, you'll see luxurious versions of this sando all over the internet, with ingredients like wagyu, caviar, all the glam. But at its core, it's a cheap, on-the-go, everyman sandwich that can be picked up at a gas station or at a kombini, which is a Japanese convenience store. Fun fact, Japan has more vending machines per capita than any country on the planet. It's wild. You can get anything from hot noodles to hot coffee out of a vending machine to new socks for your nice shoes, everything. It's cool and crazy. We love Japan. All right, let's make the sandwich. So we're gonna need 2 sauces for this katsu sandwich here. A classic tonkatsu sauce, which you can definitely buy at the store. We're gonna make our own today, but I'll give this away on the Discord, so head on over there if you're not already involved. The second sauce we need to make is basically just like a mustard mayo. And the mustard special, it's this Japanese mustard here. You can also just use like a spicy, I mean, even a Dijon works, I guess, but you know, if you really wanna do this the right way, get the Japanese mustard. Comes in these little like wasabi tubes. We're gonna start with the tonkatsu sauce. It begins with ketchup. A dash of McDurber, some soy sauce, it's gonna season it as well and add to the color. And then some of this here Japanese mustard. Simple as that. Just gonna whisk that up and it's looking nice and light brown. I might add a dash more soy. Yeah, it smells exactly like tonkatsu sauce. And to give it a little bit of a darker color, I'm just gonna do this on the fly. A dash of dark soy sauce. Check this out. Oh yeah, now it's looking a little more tonkatsu-y. All right, so this is what we're working with here. So yeah, I mean, we used ketchup, Worcestershire, I guess some soy sauce and Japanese mustard, but that can be replaced for regular mustard. But you can see how Western influenced the sauce is, right? Nice. Oh, yeah, tangy, we love. Next sauce. All right, so for the mayo mustard, we need mayo and mustard. This is Japanese QP mayo, just got a little MSG in it, makes it really good. And some more of this Japanese mustard in the mayo mustard. There you go. Makes sense, not too hard. Just gonna whisk that up, and we're done. This is the mayo mustard that we're gonna be using for our Katsu Sandwich. All right, katsu needs pork cutlet, which is what these are. These are just pork loins. I removed the rib, I trimmed them up a little bit and left a big fat cap on. I salted these in the fridge a couple hours ago, and now they look like this. Beautiful, lean and fatty with, again, a beautiful fat cap. That should sit well on our sandwiches. Now, in order so that these don't curl up, I'm just gonna score them. Do this with a knife or scissors. Gonna cut little slits in the fat there so it can kind of curl around on its own. Okay, FO. All right, those are gonna fry up nicely. So to make this even more tender, we're gonna jacquard it. This thing is called a jacquard slicer, or poker, but you can also just do this with a knife, but these things are nifty. And this is just gonna make the pork a lot more tender by poking holes all over it. It's a lot easier than a knife, I would say, but. And just like that, we have a jacquarded cutlet ready to be dunked. So these are already salted. Now we just gotta do a simple dry, wet, dry dredge. So the first dry, little all-purpose flour right here. Make sure it's nice and coated. Shake it off into the egg Washington. And into the panko breadcrumbs. The Japanese white breadcrumbs. They're a little more robust than a classic, like Italian, more fine breadcrumb. Almost kind of look like Rice Krispies. So really make sure we get it nice and covered in there. And when these fry up, they turn like, they just look really cool. I'm a fan. Nice. Check that out. A coated cutlet. I might run that back once more, just to really make sure that it's crusty. We're doing a lot on the fly today, guys. Cooking with our hearts. And back in the panko. Yeah, that's gonna be crust central right there. And now these are coated, seasoned, jacquarded, trimmed, and ready to fry. All right, our oil's sitting at 300. We're gonna fry one of these off. Drop that in. Kind of lift it off the bottom, make sure it starts to cook. Yeah, it fell. Give this a flip ski. Look at that. I'll leave this here so it doesn't touch the bottom. All right, we're looking beautiful. This is fry one. Going back in for the double fry. This is where the real magic happens. Give it a flipperoni. Katsu Dunzo. On to the next one. Gua Bao originated in Taiwan and is eaten generally during temple festivals and for special celebrations. Though Taiwan didn't invent the bao itself, you know, that soft, pillowy little puffer, they definitely helped make it famous in other parts of the world. I mean, starting back maybe 15 or so years ago, you started seeing these pop up all over the place here in the States. I mean, there isn't like a millennial hipster burger bar that doesn't serve some sort of like bao appetizer, I feel like. No hate, I love bao, baos are great. But this specific style of fluffy bread taco has been enjoyed in Taiwan since the 1950s, before it was cool. Fun fact, Taiwan actually invented bubble tea, otherwise known as boba, back in the 1980s. I'm sure you know what that is, everyone does, it's delicious and they're fun to eat. Or you absolutely hate them, it's kind of a love-hate thing. Regardless, let's cook. Ugh, Gua Bao needs pork belly. Yes, it does. So this is a similar braise, but different than the other pork belly. So as you can see, this is kind of like a soy sauce gingery. There's a ton of aromatics in here. These Chinese soy sauce based braises tend to have a lot going on, which is awesome because they're complex and delicious. But you can see we have this pork belly slab type situation, kind of like you might see it like Korean barbecue, right? So with this cooked and tender piece of pork, we're just gonna peel those aromatics away. I think I got a little bone there, we'll take that off. And look at this, I mean, you can see that beautiful fat on the inside and that, look, this meat just wants to shred apart. But we ain't gonna let it, we need this intact. And then of course, the gelatinous skin, which I really like. It's about a good portion for a bao, I would say right there. Beautiful. So we're just gonna take our pork and kind of just portion it out. Pickled mustard greens. This is sort of like a sour, tangy, crunchy element, almost like a Chinese pickle on our Gua Bao. Shout out Madam Wong. Looks like a good hang, I don't know. You can get these at pretty much like a lot of different Asian markets. More likely to find them at obviously a Chinese market. I got these at a Vietnamese market though, so just keep an eye out if you want. They also have these on Amazon. I'll leave links for the harder to find ingredients below if you want to try this out, but yeah. These come out the bag pretty salty. So I'm just gonna take all this brine and put that in some water to kind of rinse it a little bit, kind of dilute it just a touch. And I mean, look at that, mustard greens. Actually, I remember an outdoor ad, they taught us about wild mustard greens. I used to like collect them and eat them, but they like didn't taste good. These are better. Shout out Chinese mustard greens. So I'm just gonna squeeze the agua out of them here. Let's give them a little chop through. So you get some of the leaf, you get some of like the more crunchy stem part. Nice textural contrast. So yeah, and these just go right into some hot oil just to stir fry or saute for a little bit until they're warmed up. Peanut powder. This is a little topper for the bao. It's gonna make things a little sweet, nutty, crunchy. I just took some peanuts here and roasted them off in the oven. They were raw, so just salted them and roasted them. You can also just buy like pre-roasted peanuts, right? And this is sugar. And together they make peanut sugar powder. Into our little spice grinder. Throw in some peanuts. Should be good. Some sugar. Remember, these are already salted. Beautiful. Simple as that. Smells great. That's the first step of peanut butter right there after all. Want some texture in there too, so I like that there are some chunkatries. Come on! Yeah. Look at those little pebbles. Roasty, toasty, peanut crumble. Whew. Okay, all of the components of our sandwiches are finito. It is officially TTB. Banh Mi sandwich starts with Vietnamese baguette. We're gonna start with some of our pate here. Down with this. It's a nice thin layer, nothing crazy. We're gonna hit it with our Vietnamese ham. And of course the pork roll. Then we got some cucumbers. No need to be dainty about it. I like a lot of crunch on my banh mi. Speaking of crunch, we have our jalapenos for that spicy crunch. Then we have our daikon carrot salad. Nice pickly, acidic, again, crunchy bite. Can help break through everything, keep it light. Plenty of cilantro. And I probably should have done this first, but we are going to lift the ham and sneak in some of that butter mayo on top. And this is the Vietnamese banh mi. Gilgeori Toast, toasted milk bread, lightly toasted. We're gonna go right on with our cabbage omelet situation. This is where things get strange. Remember what I was saying, Koreans like sweet stuff like Americans? Well, we're gonna hit it with sugar. And it's not like a small amount of sugar. And for that 1-2 sweet punch, ketchup. Look at that, kind of looks like a sugary murder scene. And we top. Gilgeori Toast from South Korea. Interesting. Bunch of cheap ingredients, throw it with some good bread, some sweet stuff, and you got yourself a morning snack, I guess. All right, the Chinese hamburger. Interesting one to cut. I'll give it my best. It's kind of like an empanada, so just gonna use a sharp, non-serrated. Let's see if we can get this halved. Not fully though. Oh yeah, it kind of worked. Look at that. You can see the spirals in there. Steamy. It smells like white bread. So the only thing now is we essentially just spoon our mixture in. I'm gonna load this thing up, I guess. Get more in there. I'm getting greedy, aren't I? Yeah, they call it the Chinese hamburger, but it's definitely more like a Chinese arepa. Japanese Katsu Sandwich starts with milk bread. I'm gonna spread some tempered butter on the bottom of this bread. It acts as like a barrier. Remember, fat deflects moisture. These are kind of served classically at room temperature, so they will be sitting out. You don't want things like leaking through. Nice thin layer of butter. Just gonna do that on both sides. Kind of try to edge it. Now we're gonna take a bit of our mustard mayo and spread that over the butter. Nice thin layer. Now I'm gonna take my katsu cutlet and put that right on there. We're gonna put our katsu, homemade katsu sauce right on top of that cutlet. Wonderful. I'll spread it around a little bit. Wonderful. And just a small layer of thinly sliced cabbage. Optional, but I like it. Then the same thing with the other side of bread. We're gonna close that up, squish it down oh so gently. And to help with the squishability, we're We're gonna press it longer for about 10 minutes with a little bit of weight on top, and that'll help the sandwich kind of settle down and the bread start adhering to that katsu. All right, should be nice and squishy. Looks nice and squishy. Now we just gotta chop the ends off. And then, classically, cut it in thirds. I'm gonna aim here and here. And then you serve it on its side. But in the meantime, check that out. And also look at all these little extra bits for whoever wants it. For the Gua Bao, we need bao. Steamed squishy bao. Bao down. Gonna go on with some of those mustard greens. Some of our succulent pea belly. A teensy bit of that meat jus. A little peanut powder. Some cilantro. Love the cilantro in all these. And a wee bit of red chili. That spicy kick. Boom, the Gua Bao. All built up, ready to go. 5 powerhouses on the board right now. There's only one thing left to do. It's time to taste. There's 2 things left to do actually, but we're gonna get to that later. Where should we begin? Probably start with this guy. It seems approachable. The Rou Jia Mo.
Rou Jia Mo.
Chinese hamburger. I did hear that in order for this thing to be supremely as good as it can be, you gotta pour some of the meat jus on it. Ooh yeah, baby. No leakage, look at that. All right, bottoms up. It's a nice vessel. It's a little white bready, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's just not a lot of like flavor in it. The texture is a little shorter, almost like a big tortilla, which I definitely don't hate. The scallions, the cilantro, the braisy rich pork, some of that jus in there. I could see how this would be really nice to eat on the street. It is a street food. Moving down the line, let's go with the katsu. I mean, this is a classic. I love how they're just cut into these little crustless thirds. They're so proper. Look at that. That's just a fun bite. It's perfect finger food. Even though this is a beefy, beastly cutlet here, heritage pork, you know, it's easy to chomp down on. We tenderized it with that jacquard, that super craggly, crispy panko breadcrumbs, those huge, you know, almost like Tic Tac sized little pieces of breadcrumb. You got the butter on there. You got the mayonnaise and mustard on there. You got the sweet tonkatsu sauce, little crunch from the cabbage, the soft bread. Again, white bread. Is it the most flavorless? No, but that's not the point. It's for the vessel. It hugs it. You can eat it with your hand or a pair of chopsticks maybe. I don't know who's eating with a pair of chopsticks, but I don't know. That's good. That takes me back to my trip to Japan. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, I guess we're just gonna go right for the baoski. Gua Bao, Taiwan, baby. A lot of pork going on today. That's not a bad thing. We like pork. This, the white bread, I guess there's like 3 examples back to back to back here. This is basically like Uncrustable style bread, right? It's a little spongier and we like that it's soft. You can see your teeth marks in there. You could feel it on your teeth when you're done taking a bite. The pork belly is shreddy and fall apart enough, but it stays together when you bite it. I love the gooey gelatinousness from the skin too. There's no crispiness in that pork whatsoever, but that's not a bad thing because you get the crispiness from the vegetables, the chili, the spice and the crunch from the chili, the aromats from the cilantro. And yo, that peanut powder really helps bring things together. Pork like sweet, spicy like sweet. There's a lot of good stuff here. I might have to hit that one more time. It's great. Gua Bao. All right, this one is interesting. I am very excited to try it. The Gilgeori South Korean street food specialty. So I've seen this actually rolled up in foil, almost like, so the sandwich is coiled and folded in half, and you just kind of eat it like a burrito, which is interesting, but I want to see the cross section on this thing. Let's check it out. Cuts nicely. All right. Cabbage, omelet, sugar sandwich. Cool, bottoms up. Okay, you saw how much sugar we put in on that thing along with the ketchup. I don't know how, but it's not that sweet. I was expecting it to be like a candy sandwich. It's definitely sweet, but I kind of like it. Am I developing a sweet tooth in my older years here? I don't know. There is a little bit of crunch from the cabbage and all the vegetables in there. They're soft enough to be pleasant to eat, but they're not fully mushed, so there is texture. However, it definitely is a softer sandwich. The toasted milk bread is nice too, I like that. Yeah, I don't know, man. Okay. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Wow, okay. Pleasantly surprised by that. Last on the docket, the legendary Banh Mi. This is, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, this is one of my favorite sandwiches on earth, but we'll see how it stands up. Oh yeah. The butter mayo, the pate. I always notice when I go into the shops, they're not that meaty, right? They don't stack these things like an Italian sub. All those pickles, the vegetables. I'm gonna need a corn bite here. Bang! Man, hear me out. If you don't like pate, you think liver's kind of gross, it grosses you out, this is a great introduction to it. Because you don't taste it full on, right? It sits on the sandwich and it plays with everything else. This is a case study in how to balance food right here. The multiple kinds of pork, the different textures within the pork are interesting. This is a little more firmer. This ham is a little more softer. The roll is firmer. All of the crunchy veg, the acidicness from the pickles, it's kind of sweet as well. The butter mayonnaise to kind of round it out and make it unctuous and like kind of satisfying. All that pate again for the satisfaction factor. And of course, we didn't talk about this. The bread, you know, the type of bread you use to make a sandwich is obviously extremely important, but for this, it needs to be crusty on the outside, fluffy white on the inside. It's one of those things you can crush a whole like 10-inch banh mi and you're not gonna feel full after, which is kind of wild. Or you'll feel full, but you're not gonna be like bloated and dying. Can't say the same about like a Philly cheesesteak, you know, or like an Italian beef. But yeah, man, the banh mi, the legend. Let's go. All right, the hardest part of the day. We gotta rank these things. 1 through 5, fifth worst place first. It's gonna be the Asian sandwich victor and get to represent them in the final showdown. It's kind of easy to hard with this one. In fifth place, on this heavy-hitting strong boy board, it's gonna have to be the Gilgeori sandwich. Okay, this is actually way better than I thought it was gonna be. I was getting like real wound up to hate on this thing. It's not that bad. The problem is it's just not that good when compared to the other amazing sandwiches on this board. A little too sweet, but not annoyingly. I thought it was gonna be like annoyingly sweet. Just a little soft. Again, if I was walking down the streets of Seoul and saw like an g-maw whipping one of these up, I would grab it immediately and I'm sure it would be tasty in the moment, especially rolled up in a little burrito. But fifth place, boom. In fourth place, it's gonna have to be the Chinese hamburger, which is not called the Chinese hamburger, but you get it. On the board, with all the breads that we have going on here, this was maybe one of my least favorite, I would say, to be real. It's just a little on the drier side. There's not much flavor going on with it. Of course, the ooey gooey soy braised pork with all those aromatics and the herbs are gonna be really tasty, and they were. But again, walking down the streets of, you know, a big Chinese city and seeing somebody whipping one of these up on the street, I would get very excited, and it was still very tasty. But fourth place. All right, we're getting into the podium here. First, second, and third. Bronze, silver, gold. We're gonna start with the bronze, third place. In third place, the bronze, respectable on the podium. The bao. The Gua Bao. Squishy, meaty, spicy, a little sweet, aromatic. This thing does everything right. Usually you get these maybe served 1, 2, 3 of them at a time. I love the taco energy. I do like the mustard greens, a little funky on their own, but in the sandwich, very balanced. Yeah, there's not really much to say here. This is fantastic, but compared to these two things, I would probably choose it third. That's all I got. So, bronze, Gua Bao. The silver and the gold. We're gonna start with the silver. In second place, little curveball for you. It's gonna have to be the Banh Mi. Now, I know this whole video I was saying that this is my favorite sandwich, and it definitely is one of them. Today, I'm trying to go by this mantra, like what did I enjoy most in the exact moment today? What does my tummy tell you? And my tummy tells you that this Katsu sandwich just really hit the spot. We'll talk about that in a second. The Banh Mi, the unctuousness, the lightness of it all, but it's still satisfying. You could eat this on a winter day. You can eat this on a 105-degree day with 98% humidity, which I'm sure happens a lot in Vietnam in the summer, especially down south. But look at this thing. One of my favorite bites in the sandwich, it's a little demonic because the bread is so good, is like a lot of the times, you know, the meat stuff pokes out. I love just like gnawing and like kind of evening it out and then going for it. Second place, The banh mi, I love the sandwich so much, man. It hurts me a little bit to give it the silver, but yeah. Which means in first place, your Asian sandwich champion, the gold, the winner, the best guy, Japan's Katsu Sandwich. Woo hoo hoo hoo! This is how you do that. Polish accent, Japan. All right, anyways, I just kind of want to eat those like a corn cob. The Katsu sandwich, man, it's funny because the sandwich part, right? This is a sandwich, but it's functional. This is to grab onto, right? These are like the love handles. You allow the sauce to stick to them. It hugs the pork oh so perfectly and gently. And then you get that super soft, squishy, and then right when it kind of hits your teeth and starts sticking to your teeth, you get that crisp, craggly, fatty oftentimes, which is very good. We're saying that in a good way, in a loving way today. Like pork cutlet, the sweet sauce, the fatty mayonnaise, the butter on the bread, which is just such a hack. I mean, you're gonna put butter on the bread, you can barely tell, it just helps everything stick, but it also helps keep the bread nice and dry so that it doesn't get soggy. Because remember, like I said, this food is convenience store food, right? It's sitting out sometimes, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. They hold it warm, but it's not supposed to be piping hot, and it's really satisfying, and I really like it, and it won the gold today. So give it up for your boy, Katsu Sando. I want to eat this right now, but I won't. Okay, now is the time of the video where we get demonic. We are going to take the best components, or my favorite components of the sandwiches from today, and fuse them together to create the ultimate Frankensando Sando. Asian Frankenstein Sando. We can't not start with the crustiest of them all, the pork cutlet from the Katsu Sando. We're just gonna cut that in half there so it fits on the bread, which is from the Vietnamese Banh Mi, the Vietnamese baguette. It is gosh tier bread. A little of that butter mayo, two words that often aren't paired together, but I'm here for it. Lay on those katsu cutlets, then a little bit of that katsu sauce, a little bit of the peanut powder from the Gua Bao, some cabbage from the Gilgeori Toast, cilantro from the Chinese hamburger, banh mi, and Gua Bao, triple thread, a few red chilies for spice and that pop of color, then finally a healthy squirt of cooking liquid from both the Gua Bao and the Chinese hamburger. I'm gonna try this one more time. The Rou Jia Mo. Rou Jia Mo. We're gonna slice that up on the bias so the pork doesn't fall out, and boom! The hybrid Franken-Asian or Frasian Sando. Let's give it a muck. You know, similarly to the milk bread, it hugs this katsu cutlet pretty well. I love the spice with the katsu cutlet too. There's no spice in the katsu cutlet. There's no spice in the katsu cutlet, and it's really nice to have the chilies on there because it plays nice again with the sweetness of the peanut. I don't know. I know I've said this a fair amount of times, but this might be the move. Just make all these and then make this. We did it. We have been all over the world, tons of different continents. Man, it's been a journey. Thanks for watching until the end here. We're finally at a stage where we can take the champions from each episode, pit them against each other, and see which sandwich is the best on the planet Earth. With an asterisk, of course. We'll talk about that later. If you like the video, go ahead and give it a like. That helps us, that helps the channel out. If you are new to the channel, consider subscribing to the channel. New videos every week. We love doing what we do, and your support helps us do that, so appreciate it. Speaking of support, the best way to support the channel is over on the Patreon, aka the Grocery Fund. Just helps us keep the lights on, a little extra funnel to kind of help us detach from the YouTube algorithm. Also, we got a Discord, so come on in and introduce yourself. I do giveaways like I was talking about earlier in the video with the Bulldog sauce. We got other cool prizes too this month, so come on in, introduce yourself, talk to like-minded individuals who love food and cooking. It's a great little community we got over there. That's all I got for you, so until the next video where we wrap the series up, annyeong. Bye in Korean, right? Right?